Imagine standing in the heart of an ancient city, watching as the sun begins to set over the hills of Jezreel. The air is thick with tension, the people whispering nervously, because today is not just any day. Today marks the fall of one of the most notorious figures in the Bible, a queen who embodied everything wicked: idolatry, betrayal, murder. Her name? Jezebel. And today her story comes to a tragic and unforgettable end. But how did it come to this? How did the once mighty Queen Jezebel, with all her power, influence and cunning, face such a humiliating and horrific death? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is a tale of divine justice, one of the most chilling accounts in biblical history. The rise of Queen Jezebel, a tyrant, cloaked in power. Jezebel was no ordinary queen. From the moment she stepped foot in Israel, everything changed. She wasn't born in Israel. She came from the land of Phoenicia, bringing with her the worship of Baal, a god of fertility, storms, and rain. Now, you might wonder why this was such a big deal. After all, in ancient times, many cultures worshipped multiple gods. But for Israel, it was a direct betrayal of the one true God, Yahweh. Jezebel didn't just casually introduce Baal worship. She aggressively promoted it, using her influence over her husband, King Ahab, to establish Baal temples, altars and shrines across the land. But it didn't stop there. Jezebel went on a brutal crusade to silence the prophets of Yahweh. She hunted them down, killed them, and replaced them with prophets of Baal. The nation of Israel, once rooted in the worship of God, was now drowning in idolatry. Jezebel's reign of terror wasn't just about religious persecution. It was about power, raw, unbridled power. And she wielded it without mercy, manipulating everyone around her, including her own husband. Ahab, although the king, often seemed to be merely a pawn in Jezebel's game. Her influence over him was so strong that even he feared to cross her. And yet, for all her power, Jezebel made one fatal mistake. She thought she could escape the judgment of God. The vineyard of Naboth, a sinful seizure. One of the most infamous examples of Jezebel's cruelty involves a man named Naboth. Naboth was a simple man, a Jezreelite, who owned a beautiful vineyard right next to King Ahab's palace. Ahab, ever the opportunist, saw this vineyard and decided it would make the perfect addition to his royal property. He offered Naboth money or a better vineyard in exchange, but Naboth refused. You see, this vineyard was his inheritance, passed down through his family, and he wasn't about to give it up. Now Ahab, like a spoiled child, went back to his palace, sulking and refusing to eat. Jezebel noticed his sour mood and immediately took control. "Are you not the king of Israel?" she mocked. "I will get you that vineyard." And with those words, she set her wicked plan in motion. Jezebel forged letters in Ahab's name, declaring a day of fasting and gathering the people. She placed Naboth in a prominent position, only to have two scoundrels accuse him of cursing God and the king. These accusations were false, of course, but Jezebel knew how to manipulate the system. The punishment for such blasphemy was death by stoning. Naboth, an innocent man, was dragged out of the city and executed, all so that Jezebel could hand his vineyard to her sulking husband. But this wasn't just the theft of a piece of land. This was an act of murder, and in the eyes of God, it was an abomination. The curse of Elijah, divine judgment. God saw what Jezebel and Ahab had done, and he sent his prophet Elijah to confront the king. Imagine the scene. Ahab is inspecting his newly acquired vineyard when Elijah, the fiery prophet, suddenly appears before him. With the weight of divine authority, Elijah delivers a chilling message. "In the place where dogs licked Naboth's blood, they will lick your blood. Yes, yours." But the prophecy didn't end there. Elijah went on to declare that every male in Ahab's family would perish, and Jezebel, well, her fate was sealed. The dogs would devour her body, leaving nothing but bones behind. At this point, Ahab did something unexpected. He repented. He tore his clothes, fasted, and humbled himself before God. And because of this, God delayed the judgment on Ahab's house. But Jezebel? She showed no sign of remorse. She continued on her path of wickedness, defiant until the end. The rise of Jehu, God's avenger. Years passed and the kingdom of Israel continued to suffer under the reign of Ahab's descendants, but God had not forgotten his promise. He raised up a new leader, Jehu, a commander in the army, and anointed him as king of Israel. Jehu wasn't just tasked with ruling the kingdom. He was given the divine mission to bring justice to the house of Ahab and to Jezebel herself. Jehu wasted no time. He quickly set out to execute God's judgment, starting with Jezebel's son, Joram, who was the king at the time. With a single arrow, Jehu killed Joram, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. But his mission wasn't over. He had one more target: Jezebel. The fall of Jezebel. A moment of defiance. When Jezebel heard that Jehu was coming, she didn't flee or hide. No, Jezebel, in true defiance, painted her face, adorned herself in her royal robes, and positioned herself in a window, looking down at Jehu as he approached. Her pride was as strong as ever, and she mocked him, asking, "Have you come in peace, Zimri?" Zimri, of course, was a reference to a previous king killer, but Jezebel's attempt to shake Jehu's resolve fell flat. Jehu, unfazed by her taunts, looked up and called out to her servants. "Who is on my side?" he shouted. 2 or 3 eunuchs, realizing that Jezebel's reign of terror was over, stepped forward and at Jehu's command threw her down from the window. Imagine the shock of the people as they watched the once mighty queen fall from her lofty position. Jezebel's gruesome death. The prophecy fulfilled. Jezebel's body hit the ground with a sickening thud, her blood splattering against the walls and horses. But her humiliation didn't end there. Jehu's horses trampled over her body, and as prophesied, the dogs came and devoured her remains. By the time they went to bury her, all that was left were her skull, feet, and hands. This was the ultimate act of divine justice. Jezebel, who had lived her life in luxury and power, manipulating, murdering, and defying God, was reduced to nothing. Her body, once adorned in royal robes, was now consumed by the lowest of creatures, and her name became synonymous with wickedness and rebellion. The legacy of Jezebel, a warning to all. Jezebel's story is more than just a historical account, it's a powerful warning. Her life serves as a reminder that no one, no matter how powerful or influential, can escape the judgment of God. Jezebel's pride, idolatry, and cruelty led to her ultimate destruction, and her death stands as one of the most shocking examples of divine retribution in the Bible. But her story also speaks to the dangers of leading others into sin. Jezebel wasn't content with her own rebellion. She dragged an entire nation down with her. Her actions led Israel away from God, and her punishment was not just for her personal sins, but for the widespread corruption she caused. God's justice, the final word. In the end, Jezebel's story is a testament to the sovereignty and justice of God. No matter how long it may take, God's plans will always come to pass. Jezebel may have thought she could escape judgment, but God's justice was inevitable. And Jehu, the instrument of that justice, carried out God's will with unwavering determination. Jezebel's death is a reminder that sin has consequences. But it's also a reminder of the importance of humility and repentance. Unlike her husband Ahab, who showed remorse, Jezebel remained defiant until the very end. And in the end, her defiance led to her downfall. Conclusion: a story of judgment and redemption. The story of Queen Jezebel is one of the most compelling and tragic in the Bible. It's a story of power, manipulation, and pride, but ultimately, it's a story of judgment. Jezebel's life and death remind us that no one is beyond the reach of God's justice, but it also serves as a call to repentance, to turn away from sin before it's too late. As we reflect on Jezebel's fate, let us remember the importance of living in obedience to God. For in the end, it's not our wealth, power, or influence that will matter, but our relationship with God and our willingness to follow His ways. Jezebel's name may be remembered for her wickedness, but let our names be remembered for faithfulness, humility, and a heart that seeks after God. Thank you for watching, and may we all strive to walk in the light of God's truth.